Welcome to your next training video for word problems. I know everybody looks forward to this one. A lot of math students really struggle with this, setting up equations and just overcoming anxiety about it. And so your attitude is going to help them a lot. So keep that in mind. For my opinion, without word problems, there's no point in learning math. You may quote me on that, because we got to be able to use it in real life. That's the whole point of these word problems. So you can help them to understand that. That's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about 3 different types of word problems. So there's going to be 3 videos on word problems. First, translation, translating from words into equations. One specifically about percentage and percentage change. And then one specifically about different rates. And so we're going to look at each of these in the next 3 videos. But we'll start with just a overall process for word problems. One thing that's troubling about word problems is that they all feel different. Even if you solve them in the same way, they can feel different. And so it's hard to have a step-by-step process like you do with other equations or other types of problems. And so this is just a generalized process that can help students to know where to start with these math problems. So we're going to start with the letter D in our acronym here. What is the data? Okay, data often means numbers, right? But it's not just numbers. It is numbers, but it's also more than that. You're going to look for any relationships between variables. Maybe it says one side is 3 feet longer than the other, something like that, right? Relationships. Maybe you'll use words that relate to formulas, like it'll say perimeter or circumference, things like that. Other keywords like quotient or sum. So you're going to look for anything that tells you information about the situation. That's what the data is. Okay, and next you're going to look for what is my unknown, right? What is the goal? And whatever you're trying to find, you want to give it a variable name. So we can keep track of it, right? Give it a variable name. That's what we're trying to find. Okay. From that data, you want to start to form a plan. Okay. Maybe your plan is to use those relationships. Maybe you need to substitute. That's an example of a plan. I don't put them all in here, but there's different ideas, right? Substitute. Maybe your plan is to use a formula that you know. Maybe guess and check. That's a valuable plan. Guess and check. Spelled guess wrong, that's all right. And then from that, you will form an equation. Maybe it's what you're going to plug in when you substitute. Maybe you're going to use it to guess and check. And so our 4th one is to make an equation from that. Make sure that your variable is there so you can find it. All right, we got an acronym here that is DUPE. Okay, there's a couple of different definitions going around for this. The newer one I know means a duplicate, right? I'll put the trends. But dupe can also mean to trick, right? Oh, you've been duped, right? But that's not going to happen to you, because instead of the word problem duping you, you dupe it. Ha! Word problem, I dupe you. So there you go. We're going to walk through this process for the next few word problems. We're going to try it out first with a translation problem. Okay, here's what we mean. This is a bunch of numbers and words, and we're going to try to create an equation from it. That's how we're going to translate it. So let's walk through this problem, looking first for the data. All right, truck rental company has a fixed rate. Okay, we know that's a relationship right there. It's a fixed rate. It's not going to change, of $40. Okay, that's our data. And then 20 cents per mile. So that does change depending on how many miles you've driven. Right, so we've got data so far. Nancy rented a truck for 3 days and was billed a total of 117. So I'm just underlining some of the numbers we've got here. 117. In order for her work to pay the bill, she also has to know how many miles she's driven in the truck. Okay, how many miles did she drive? So here's our data. Our unknown is the miles. Okay, let's give it a variable name. So I'm going to say D for distance. You also use M for miles. All right. Okay. Let's try to make a plan from this. All right. So we got a total of 117. So our plan, I'm going to use the total. And it's going to have some addition on it, right? So we're going to have some sums. Okay, I'm going to use the $40. That's fixed. She's got to pay that. Her company does. And the 20 cents per mile. Now, is it important that she drove for 3 days? Maybe for Nancy it is, right? The emotional strain of 3 days is a lot. Hopefully she gets paid well for it. We'll see. But the bill was $117, but it doesn't matter how many days it took. We're just looking at the mileage. So this one actually is not important. And that's a very useful skill for you to help your students to see. Does that information help me find the unknown? No, it does not. And so I don't need to do anything with that number 3. Okay, so now I have a plan. I'm going to have to try to add these together to total 117. So my equation is going to be a total 117. Right? My fixed rate of $40 does not change, so there's no variable to it. It just stays the same. And I'm going to add that to however many miles times, okay, so it's 20 cents. You don't have to write the 0. But you can if you want to. Times however many miles she drove, which we don't know, so there's our variable. Ta-da! We have an equation. Sometimes you'll get to the equation step and it doesn't work. We'll look at one like that in a minute. And so you're going to need to go back and evaluate your plan or figure out if you're looking at the wrong unknown. So you can walk through this dupe process more than once to help you out. And then from here we can just solve it. It's an equation. And so 117 minus 40 is 77. I'm going to divide that by 2/10. And I get my total distance is 385 miles. So if you want to check that, you can multiply it by 20 cents, add 40, and you should get 117. There we go. So again, with these problems, walk through the dupe process. If something doesn't make sense or isn't important, like the 3 days along the way, make sure that you help your student to understand that. Let's do one more translation problem, then we'll try some other types of problems in another video. 3 consecutive integers sum to 72. There is one sentence, and it's short, but there is a lot of data there. We're looking for 3 numbers. They are consecutive, which means in a row, right? Like 5, 4, I'm writing 5, 4, 4, 5, 6. Did it backwards. In a row, okay? Integers, not fractions, but they could be negative. My voice, I just got negative. Not fractions, but they could be negative, they could be 0, they could be positive, as long as they're whole numbers. Okay, and the sum, we know a sum means adding 72. So that's a lot of data are unknown. There's actually 3 of them, so I'm going to just name them X, Y, Z. Right. There we go. My plan, it says sum, so I'm going to add to get 72, right? So that's going to give me an equation. My equation is those 3 variables add together to get 72. So here is an example of when I need to reevaluate my plan, because that's 3 variables in one equation. I can't solve that. I have to go back and think about this and the relationships here. So if my first number is X, right? We're just calling it X. My second number is Y. My third number is Z. And they are consecutive, which means that if I start with like 3, the next one is 4. It's 1 more. So Y is actually equal to X plus 1. And Z will be 1 more even than that. And so it's going to be X plus 1 plus 1, which is X plus 2. So I'm adding to my plan now that I'm going to substitute to get one variable, 1x. Right, so I'm going to plug these into my equation. First one is just there already, it's x. My second variable is x plus 1. My third one is x plus 2. equals 72. And now that is something beauty that I can solve. And so I'm going to combine like terms. You guys already know how to do this. I'm going to subtract and divide, and I get the first term, which is 23. Another thing you want to help your students remember is to answer the question. We wanted to find not just the first number, but all three numbers. So the first number is 23. The next one is one more than that, so it's 24. Next one's one more than that, or two more than 23. So our three numbers are 23, 24, and 25. One more thing about word problems before we move on is that there are lots of different processes. Right? We didn't have to write a variable with equations. Some of your students might have just divided by 3 and kind of guessed and checked from there. That's okay. Right? There's lots of different ways to think about these. So be open to that as you help students with word problems. See what ideas they have, what plans they have to find an equation or to find a variable. Okay, we're going to talk about percentages in the next video, so go ahead and move on to that one.